Hi, my name is Andy Sellers. Today we're going to be talking about how to de-escalate students. Why do we want to talk about de-escalating students? It's important to think about this ahead of time because if you're ever in a situation where a student is becoming upset or in a crisis, we need to have a plan, so you need to think about it ahead of time. We want to talk about power struggles and how to avoid engaging in power struggles with students. We're going to talk about rational detachment and not taking things personally. And if we can accomplish these things, then many times our classroom management will improve, and so will the success and outcomes for our students. So the first thing we might notice for a student who's escalating is that they are in the anxiety stage. In this stage, it's defined as a noticeable change or increase in behavior. So we want to make sure that if we notice a student is feeling anxious or in the anxiety stage, that we approach them in a supportive, non-judgmental manner, like this. Hey, Mr. Reed. Looks like something's not quite right today. Are you okay? If you need something, just let me know. So you can see right here that if he was in the anxiety stage and I'm trying to de-escalate him, I wasn't using good personal space. I was trying to be supportive, but I was actually creating more anxiety for him than for what I was helping, because as I moved in closer, it made him more anxious. So we always need to make sure that we're keeping good boundaries and personal space and making sure that the student knows we're there to support. As we think about personal space, we need to consider that it's typically 1.5 to 3 feet from another person. However, personal space may vary from person to person or moment to moment. It just depends. There's lots of variables that will affect personal space. For example, if I'm usually really friendly and huggy and my friend comes in and I would often give him a hug when I see him, but that day they come in and they're coughing and they're snotting and everything, then I'm probably not going to hug them that day. So that's one instance my personal space might change. Another might be if I'm upset or angry at them, then I might not want to get as close to them as I normally would. Personal space can also be changing, affected by things like culture, gender, social norms, and things like that. So we need to always be considering and be cautious when we're dealing with students, especially if we think they're escalating, and about their differences in personal space. So if you have a student who's getting upset and you think that they might be about to escalate, or you're worried about how they might react or what they might do, and maybe normally you do go up and give them a hug, just be cautious and stay back and don't invade their personal space, because oftentimes an invasion of personal space will escalate someone. As we're talking about personal space, it's very important to remember that items can also be an extension of personal space. So things like backpacks and books and cell phones, if you grab those from people, that can really escalate them really quickly. So in the next 2 videos, we're going to watch some examples and see in the first video how a teacher snatches a cell phone, which can very easily escalate a student. In the second video, we'll see an example of a better way that can be handled.
This kid, man, I swear.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Hey man, what you doing? That's an iPhone 29.
Hey man, can you put that away for me, please? I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
So body language is a very important thing that we always need to be considering. There's a lot of information that's conveyed through body language without using any words at all. So for example, this is Amy Cole, and you can see by the way she's standing with her arms crossed, she's not looking very open to me. So if I had a problem or if I needed to come to her, this is probably not the body language that she needs to be using right now. Another body language that some gestures that teachers might use with students that's not always very supportive is one like this, where this could be interpreted as being hostile. So if I needed to talk to Amy Cole about something and I was wanting to approach her, I might interpret this as her being hostile towards me. One that's interesting that you could see on the slide is this particular stance is apparently considered to be somewhat suspicious, or that someone might be hiding something or lying. So what we always want to consider now is just making sure that we have an open posture, that our arms are down, our palms are open, we're not hiding anything, and that we're accessible to the students. Another thing that we always have to be mindful of is how we say what we say. There is tone, volume, and cadence involved in the way that we speak. So when we're speaking, the kids pick up a lot. Well, everybody picks up a lot, but particularly the kids pick up a lot by how we say what we say. So, for example, if I said to a student walking in my classroom, "Oh, Johnny, you're here. I'm so glad you made it." Or if I said, "Oh, Johnny, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad you made it." Those two things, using the exact same words, convey very different messages. So the kids pick that up. So please be very careful when you're speaking to the kids that you do convey the right message with your words and how you're saying them. A common behavior that we see in school is defiance or defensiveness, with just the students just refusing to do what we need them to do. So what we want to do when that happens is redirect the student, set some limits, and then make sure that we disengage to give them time and opportunity to comply with what we're asking them to do. So here's an example of something common that you might see in a classroom. "Hey Reed, I need you to take out your pen and start working on your assignment."
I'm not gonna do that. You're not my mama.
"I know I'm not your mom, but I need you to get started on what you're doing."
No, I'm not doing that. How about I get my lawyer?
Okay, well, you have two choices. You can either start your assignment and get the points that you need to finish, and then you can get the good grade, or you can not do your assignment and you'll probably have to come back for tutoring and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna give you a minute to think about it, and I'll come back and check on you in a minute. And then we wanna always disengage from the student, because right now he's very elevated, and if I stand in front of him, I'm creating a power struggle. So I want to disengage, move away, so he has that opportunity to kind of cool down and make the right decision. He might not make the decision that I want him to make, because we can't ever make the kids do anything, but he can make some decision. At least I'm not in a power struggle with him. A lot of times when kids get defensive or they refuse to do something, the teachers will start to engage with the student and think that they're doing the right thing, because they've been taught these techniques like proximity control. That's not always the right thing to do when a student is escalating. So you'll see in the next videos how the teacher approaches the student and sets the limits. However, the teacher continues to stand there and hover and never disengages. So what this does is it causes a lot of anxiety, it causes a lot of stress, and it will really amp up the situation instead of de-escalating it, which is what we always want to happen. So watch this.
Feel me before they try and kill me. They gotta make some choices. They running out of options. Cause I've been going off and they don't know when to stop. And we get
whenever you're ready.
I heard you, man. Like, I'm putting it up.
All right. Well,
So I don't need you to, can you back, give me 50 feet?
God, you still haven't put it away yet, though. You told me you were
I
gonna
heard
do it.
you.
Okay. All right. Just put it away.
I am.
All right.
Okay, so why are you still here?
Because you haven't done it yet.
I'm putting the phone away.
Hey, man, do me a favor. Put it away for me, okay? Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, guys, back to the lesson. Today we're talking about politics in the United States. It's a great topic right now.
A lot of times when kids are being defensive or challenging, they might start to ask questions. It's really important that we try to listen to their questions and discern what type of question they're asking. Are they asking an information-seeking question, or are they asking a challenging question? Because our response is going to be really important when it comes to their reaction. If the student really just is asking an information type question, then just give them the answer. They might be escalating and defensive and challenging, but if they're simply asking, Miss, when is lunch? Then just tell them when lunch is. And that might help de-escalate the situation. If they're asking a challenging question and you can tell that it's something that they really do know, but they're just trying to get you off track and be challenging, a lot of times the kids are trying to get us in a power struggle. They think that's fun, they like to push our buttons, so we want to try to avoid that. And the way we answer the challenging questions is, again, by setting limits, trying to redirect the kid, give them a simple answer, and then move on, and hopefully the kid will let it go. It's always good to avoid power struggles, because as a teacher in a classroom full of kids, we'll never win the power struggle. Once we engage with a student and it's starting to rise to that level, the other kids in the classroom, they're not just sitting there quietly doing their work, they're looking at you. They're looking at you and they're looking at the other student, waiting to see what's going to happen. They might pull their cell phones out and start videoing at this time. But it doesn't just end it unless you, the teacher, ends it. And sometimes that means just taking a deep breath and walking away. And that's okay to do. It's a lot better than escalating, getting into a huge fight with the kid, and then something terrible happening that you can't take back. There are some keys to setting limits that are important to remember. When you're setting limits, you want to always be simple and clear, and make sure your limits are reasonable and enforceable. So simple and clear, meaning use as few words as possible. If you're talking to a kid who is defensive and challenging and escalating, they're already losing their rationality, so they're not really thinking clearly. So if you just start talking and talking and talking and telling them everything bad that's going to happen to them if they don't listen to you and follow your rules, then they're not hearing. They don't hear all of that. They can't comprehend and process all of that language at that moment. So don't use a lot of words. Just be very simple. I need you to. You can use if-then statements. If you do this, then this will happen. And then make sure whatever consequences you use are reasonable and enforceable. So we never want to have classroom teachers telling students, well, you'll get suspended if you don't, because classroom teachers don't suspend students. That's not up to them. So just make sure that when you're deciding on your consequences that they are already predetermined for your class and that you know you can enforce them. Understanding student circumstances is really important. It helps us to figure out why students are doing what they're doing, and then most importantly, it helps us to depersonalize things so that we can rationally detach, and then we have a better chance of reacting appropriately if we're not taking things personally. So let's talk about some of the things that our kids come in with that can affect their behavior, that can affect how they are ready to learn that day or not. So lots of our kids come in and they might be coming from homes where it's overcrowded, they're not getting enough sleep. If they aren't getting enough food, they might come in very hungry and irritable. If they are in a home where there's domestic violence, then they might be scared or crying or fearful. Student might need medication and maybe the meds ran out. There's a lot of variables that come into play, things that maybe we can control and maybe we can't control. If we do know about them, at least sometimes we can help. So if a kid comes in hungry, we can hand them a snack. If a kid hasn't slept all night, then we can offer them a nap. If things keep happening over and over like that, then we certainly do want to staff and come up with some kind of a plan to try to prevent that, as we don't want them napping every day. But if we know about it and we understand it, then first of all, we can try to help them with it. But the other thing is, then we might not take acting out behavior so personally if we understand it's not about us. It's about the needs of the students that aren't being met. So if my needs aren't being met and I come to school and I'm angry and irritable and I act out and I act inappropriately with my teacher, it's probably not about the teacher. It's probably about my circumstances. So if I understand that, then it helps me as the teacher to back off and not take it personally so that I can have a better response for the kid. In the videos that you're about to see, you will observe the teacher engaging inappropriately with the student because it appears that he's sort of taking it on personally, creating a power struggle by continuing to talk to the student about the problem. The second video shows the teacher addressing the whole class and then disengaging from the student and allowing that student to make a choice, make a decision, and do the right thing.
Murray, put the phone away or I'm gonna come get it from you, man.
Man, why you picking on me? Andy's sitting over here Snapchat. You ain't said nothing to her.
Andy's got a name in my class. I haven't seen you in like 15 days. Maybe you should learn something today. All right, everyone, don't forget that we're not supposed to have our cell phones out during class, so if you could put those away right now, that would be great. Do me a favor, dude. I've asked you a few times to put it away, so just put it away so I don't have to take it out from you, okay? I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's always important to remember that sometimes, no matter what we try, even if we do everything correctly, some students still will escalate, and some can get very scary, and some can even get dangerous. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where a student is very threatening, very dangerous, you feel scared, the best thing for you to do at that time is to get help. So call the front office, call the team of people on your campus who are specially trained to deal with these kind of situations, but don't try to handle this by yourself. Don't ever put your hands on the kid. That will always end up in a disaster situation. So please just seek help if you ever fear the student or you feel like you're in a dangerous situation. The next slide shows a chart about just some tips, some do's and don'ts on verbal intervention techniques. Mainly it's just always trying to stay calm, even if on the inside you don't feel calm. If you can portray on the outside that you're calm, that can go a long way. Trying to listen to the student, watch your verbal communication, how you say what you say, watch your body language, and then, don't raise your voice. And even if you're familiar with a student and you're friends with that kid, and a lot of times you joke with them, if they're upset, they're having a bad day, you can tell they're escalating. That might not be the best time to be, joking around and using sarcasm. So hold off on that. And then please try to remember not to personalize the situation. If you can remember that many times these kids are going through so much, and if they are angry and they're cussing at you or they're threatening you, they're upset at you, they're refusing to do what you want, so many times it has nothing to do with you. You just happen to be the person in the way, and if you can remain calm and remember this is not about you, then you're much more likely to respond appropriately.
Murray, what are you doing? You got your phone out, you're late. Turn that off, man. You can't come in here like that.
Okay.
All right. Just take it off by the time you get to your seat, okay? Thanks, man.
Today we've gone over a few things that can help you if you're trying to de-escalate a student. If you want more information, please contact our office. We have a lot of resources available, a lot of people that can help. Remember, you can't control someone else's behavior, but you can control your own.